Yo, what up? Welcome back to another Flutter tutorial. In this one, I'm going to show you how to code up a food delivery app with Backend. So I'll show you how to implement the authentication to register and log in new users, and then they can browse through a menu and maybe select some food add-ons, and then the user can add it to the cart. And then from this cart, the user can change the quantity amounts and things like that. And then finally go to the checkout page where they can input their card payment details. Once the payment is complete, then the user will be sent to this waiting page with the receipt. And then this order will then be sent to the backend database with live updates. This is a really good one, so like and subscribe as I'll be making more apps like this. Also, if you want to download the full code, it's linked below. Now just to show you a bit of an overview of what we're about to create. This is pretty much all of the pages and how they're connected to each other. So firstly, we're just going to check the login status, and if you're not logged in, then we're going to go to the login page, which you can also go to the register page to sign up. But this authentication will then bring us to our home page, which is where we can see the menu of the restaurant, and from there we can go to the food option and add it to the cart. We can also go to some settings pages where we can log out as well, and we can also go to the cart page, and then finally we can pay and go to the checkout and things like that. So this is going to be the overview for what we're about to code up. Sweet, so if you're ready, let's get started. So I've opened up a brand new Flutter project, and just to keep everyone on the same page, in my main function I'm running my app, and currently we're just returning a login page. And if you go to our library, I've got it organized in a pages folder. So this is just going to return a blank scaffold, which should just be a blank white app. So we'll just begin our code from here. Now the first thing I'm going to do is to just create a new folder called themes, and we're going to set up the colors for this app. So just starting with the light mode, I've already selected the shades of gray that I like to use. So you can change these colors to your own liking. I'm going to create dark mode as well. And then I need a new file for the theme provider. So this will help switch between light mode and dark mode. And it'll also be useful to have another getter for if it's dark mode or not. And then let's create our setter. And the main method here is the toggle theme. So if we are currently in light mode, then let's change to dark mode, and vice versa. Cool. And by the way, just for some simple state management, I'm just going to use provider. So let's open up our terminal. I'm going to say flutter pub add provider. So if you come back to our main function, we're going to just wrap our app in a change notifier provider, and we're going to give it our theme provider. Cool. And then if you come down to our material app in the theme section, let's just access that provider and just return whatever the current theme is. Sweet. So if you come to our login page for the background color, so instead of just specifying a fixed color like gray, we can say go to the theme, and we're going to go to our color scheme, and this is where we can access all of those different colors. So I'm just going to use background for this. So coding like this makes it really easy later on, because if you need to change any of these colors, you can just come back to the light mode and dark mode file and change it here. So in the scaffold of our login page, let's create a big column, and let's have a bit of a plan. At the top, I want to have a logo. And then maybe let's have like a welcome back message. We need an email text field, a password text field. Now, when it comes to the text field, we're going to need to use this text field multiple times. So for that, I'm going to create a new folder called components. And in here, I like to just store my custom widgets. So for example, like my text field, I'm just going to create my own version. So between the text fields, we need to know the controller and also the hint text, as well as the obscure text. So I'll show you what each of these are doing. So let's give it the controller and the obscure text. And for the decoration, I want to have a border, and we're going to have two borders, so enabled border and focused border. So just to show you here, if I come back to my login page, we can now start typing my text field, and you can see we can import that. And so we need to give it a controller. So let's come up to the top and create these text editing controllers. So one for email, one for password. And whoops, looks like we have a bit of a problem. Let's just get rid of this. And sweet, so you can see there's our text field with the nice border. And if you click on it, it'll be focused. So that's why we have the two different borders. So let's add some padding on the horizontal. And you can see the hint text is what's written in the background to let the user know what should be typed in this box. So I'm just going to change up the style. And we can do the same thing for the password. And for the password, let's set the obscure text to be true, so that will hide the characters. Cool. And then we're going to need a sign in button. So similar to the text field, I'm going to create a custom button so that we can reuse this. And so between buttons, I just need to know the on tap function as well as the text. Cool, so let's come back to our login page and we can use my button. I'm just going to say sign in, and for now let's just execute nothing. And there it is. So let's just decorate this up. I'm going to put some padding and some margin. And the decoration, let's make the border radius curved as well. Cool, and then lastly at the bottom, I'm just going to have a row of text widgets. So this will give the user the option to go to the register page. So I only want the register now text to be tappable, so I'm just going to wrap that in a gesture detector. And let's actually require this on tap at the top. Cool, so now what we need is a register page. So this will be very similar to our login page. So I'm just going to grab most of this. And in this one, we just need another text field for the confirm password. And let's just change up some of this to be the register page. And sign up instead of sign in. And at the very bottom, we can say already have an account, then log in here. And so we can click on this to go back to the login page. So we want to either show the login page or the register page, right? So we need to find a way to sort this out. So I'm going to create a new folder called Auth for the authentication and create a file called login or register.dart. And so what this page is going to do is we're just going to initially show the login page, and we're going to just create a toggle to toggle between the two pages. So in the build, we can say if show login page is true, then show the login page. And you can see on this on tap, we can trigger the toggle pages method. Else, same thing for the register page. And then if you come to the main.dart file, instead of displaying one or the other, we can just say login or register. And so if I just restart this and I save it, you can see initially we're going to be in the login page, but then if I click on register now, we can go to the register page and vice versa. Cool, so now that we can go back between the login page and the register page, now let's try to click on the sign in button and go to the home page. So if you have a look at our sign in button, you can see in the on tap, it's currently just doing nothing. So in here, what I'm going to do is let's create a method called login. And so what we're going to do is we're going to fill the authentication and all the backend stuff in the second half of the video. So for this, I just want to focus on the UI. So we'll fill it out in just a second. Now what I want to do is if we do log in and we're authenticated, then let's navigate to the home page. Now we haven't created the home page, so let's do that right now. And just to know what this page looks like in the scaffold, I'm just going to have a app bar. So let's try this out. So I'm just going to refresh this, and if I click sign in, then yes, we get to this home page. Now the next thing we need is a drawer. So in this menu drawer, I'm going to have a separate file called my drawer in our components. And so let's give it our background color, and I'm going to have a big column. So let's put the logo on the top, and we're going to have 3 list tiles. So home, settings, and also logging out. So just to see what this looks like as we decorate this along in our homepage, let's give it my drawer. So import that. And you can see that the logo is at the very top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap this in some padding. There it is. And also maybe we can make it bigger and just change up the color. Cool. And then we're going to use a divider here just to have a nice line. And below that, we're going to need a few list tiles. So because I'm going to have 3 of these, I'm also going to create another component just to make our code nice and organized. So my drawer tile. Now in each drawer tile, I just want to know the text, the icon, and also the function. So if I tap on it, what's going to happen? Okay, so let's come back to our drawer and import our drawer tile, and let's fill this out. So we want home for the first one, and there it is. And we're going to create a few more. So the next one is for settings. And then, by the way, I think we could use a bit of padding on the left. Yeah. And then the last tile is the logout, which I actually want it on the very bottom. So what you can do is in between these 2 guys, you can put a spacer, and that'll just fill up all the space in between. And maybe we could just add some space on the bottom too. Cool, that's looking pretty good. So if I click on the home list tile, let's just pop the current page. So it'll just get rid of the drawer. And for the settings, I want to go to the settings page. So firstly, we want to pop the drawer first, and then let's navigate to our settings page. Which we haven't created, so let's just create that right now. And make sure to import it. And so I can go home, and now I can go to the settings page. So when it comes to the settings page, I'm just going to have a column for the switch. So I'm going to have a dark mode, light mode switch, and I'm just going to use the Cupertino switch because I like the iOS look. And so I'm just going to decorate this up to my liking. Maybe put some decoration in this container. And make the corners a bit more curved. And this app bar, I'm just going to make sure the background is consistent. And sweet, let's space this out between. Cool, so you can see on this switch, right? If it's false, it's what it looks like right now, and then I can change it to true, and then it's going to be an on switch. So this should be depending on if we're dark mode or not, right? So for the value, we can go to our provider and we can go to our theme, and remember how we created that method for if it's dark mode or not. So it's just going to return a nice boolean, just true or false. And then for the on changed, we can then go to the toggle theme method. So let's try this out. If I refresh this and I go to my settings page and I click on this dark mode, you can see it's going to change everything to dark mode. So let's come to the home page and start decorating this up. Now I want to have a fancy app bar for this app. So it's actually called a Sliver app bar. Now to make our code nice and organized, I'm going to create a separate component. And let's create our Sliver app bar in here. So for this app bar, all I need to know is I want to know the child and also the title. So let me show you how to code this up. So if you start typing Sliver app bar, let's just start by giving it a background color and give it the title. And then the most important thing here is the flexible space. And I'm going to give it the child. So if I just show you here, if I come back to my home page, in the body, let's use a nested scroll view. And in the header sliver builder, we can return our my sliver app bar. And let's just fill out the child and the title. And it's still got a red squiggle. And if I hover over this, it's because it's requiring a body. So let's give it a body. And just to see what's going on, I'm just going to put a blue container. And if I save this, you can see this is currently what we have. Now we should actually get rid of the normal app bar. And then this is our sliver app bar here. So you can see if I scroll, it kind of does some effect. Now if I come back to my sliver app bar, you can actually control this expanded height. And so we can control how much the app bar can expand to. Another thing you can control is the collapsed height. And a couple more properties, I like to make the floating false. And what that means is you're just going to have to scroll to the very top to get the app bar down. And I also like pinned is true. So if I make this true, no matter how far you scroll up, the app bar will always be pinned at the top. So you can play around with this. And now for the actions, I'm just going to put in a cart button. And so let's give it the title. And then I want to center this. And let's add some padding. Now one thing I'm going to do is in the child, let's create a column. And so what I'm going to do is add some padding on the bottom of this child. And we're going to have a couple things here. So my current location and also a description box. So let's just start with the divider here. And for the current location, I'm going to, again, separate this out into a new component. And so this is just for the address. So let's just put in a fixed address right now, and then we're going to have a drop down menu. Cool, there it is. And I'm just going to change this cross-axis alignment to be at the start. And let's just decorate this up a bit. Cool, now the address, I'm going to wrap this row in a gesture detector because I want to allow the user to enter their own address, right? So open location search box. Let's create this method right now. So I'm just going to show a quick dialog, and this will open up a small box, and we're going to say your location. And then in the middle, we're going to have a text field so that the user can type it in. So let's try this out. If I click this, then you can see that it's going to open up this box. We can type an address in, and we need some actions. So we need a couple buttons here. So cancel and then save. So cancel, I just want to pop the box, and then saving, I want to pop it. Now for the description box. So this one, I just want to have basically a container just kind of describing the delivery time and stuff like that. So in the child, I'm just going to have a row for the delivery fee and the delivery time. Cool, there it is. And let's just fine tune it a bit. That's looking really good. Okay, now for the main part of this app, we need a tab bar. Now I've created a separate tutorial on tab bars, but I can show you real quick how to do it now. So in the components, let's create our new tab bar. And so what I need is I need a tab controller. And let's start building our tab bar. So with the tabs, we need to have a list of widgets here, and you can see it's typically a list of 2 or more tab widgets. Okay, so just to show you how this works, we can say first tab, second tab. And so in the title for this Sliver app bar, instead of just saying title, I'm going to actually put in my tab bar. We're going to need to create a tab bar controller at the top. And so in the initial state, we're going to create our tab controller. And we actually need to change this to say with single ticket provider state mixin. So this will allow us to use the tab controller. And then we can give it to our tab bar. So if I just save this, you can see we've got our two tabs. So the home and then the settings. Cool, so then I can add a third tab and change the length to 3. And nice. So this is how we use tab bars. So now we can put something in the body, right? So for this, we need a tab bar view. Okay, give it the controller, and for the children, we're just going to say, let's say hello for now. And you can see each of these 3 widgets goes into each of the tab bars. So what I'm going to do is for the first one, let's just create a blank list. And you can see in this way we can create 3 separate tab bar items. Okay, so now that we got that working, for us what we need is we want to populate this with some food items, right? Like our menu. So I'm going to create a new model called food, and just think about what a food is. So we're going to create a class here. A food is something that has a name. We need a description. I also want to have the image and also the price of the food. And the other thing is I want to have some categories. So there's going to be 5 categories that we're going to have. And we're going to use enum to create these categories. So burger, salad, side, dessert, and drinks. And the last thing is I want to have some add-ons for each food item. So we can create a add-on class here, just saying the name of the add-on and then the price of the add-on. Which means if I come back to my food class, let's have the category. So is this a burger? Is this a salad? And then let's also have some add-ons that this food could potentially have. So just to show you as an example, one example of a food is we could have a cheeseburger and the description, so a burger full of cheese, and then the image path. So it's going to be something like library/images/ wherever we put the image. And then the price could be like $4.99. And then the category could be burger, and then some available add-ons for this could be extra cheese, sauce, extra patty, things like that. So this is just an example. I mentioned about those images before, so I've got this folder of images that I've already prepared. So you obviously don't have to use these exact images, you can bring in your own ones, but hopefully you get the idea of this. Also, by the way, if you do want to use my images, you can download my entire code. You can get the full code base with all the assets and images involved. So download that from my website. But like I said, just grab any images and organize them into folders like this. So I've got burgers, dessert, drinks, salad, and sides. So now what we're going to do is if you open up your project, go to your library, and I'm just going to drag my images folder in. So if you go to your pubspec.yaml, we have to tell it that we are bringing assets in. So go to the bottom and let's comment this out. And we have pretty much 5 folders that we want to bring in. So library/images burgers, and then the other ones as well. And so you can see here is our images. Awesome, now it's time for the main part of this video, which is we're going to create a new file of the models, and we're going to call it restaurant.dart. So this restaurant class is going to pretty much organize all of the functionality and the logic for this restaurant. So just starting with the list of food menu. We're going to have burgers, salads, sides, desserts, and drinks. And so as an example, we can create a food and we have to fill out all of this, right? So I'm just going to start off with my first one, the classic cheeseburger, and just give it a description. And then the image path was library/images, burgers, and then cheeseburger.png. Make sure the naming is exactly the same as your file. Let's give it a price, 99 cents. And then the category is the burgers. And then let's have some available add-ons. Cool, so this is an example of one food item in our menu. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through all of them. I'm going to create basically 5 for each category. Okay, so I want you to go through and just create as many food items as you want. So I've got some burgers, and then I've got some salads, and then I got some sides, and then I got some desserts, and finally some drinks. So create your menu like this. And then once you've done that, we need to do some functionality. So we need some getters, we need some operations, and we need some maybe helper methods at the bottom. So I'll guide you through how to do this. Now the first getter we're going to create is a way to just get the menu. And when it comes to the operations, let's just write out all the operations that we need to do. So first thing is to add to the cart, and then we need a method to remove from the cart and get the total price of the cart. And also let's get the total number of items in the cart. And lastly, let's also have a method to just clear the cart. Cool, and then just a couple of helper methods that'll help us out. I'm going to need a method to generate the receipt. So some of this stuff I'll explain more when we get to it. Cool, so if I come back to my tab bar, you can see here we've got the 3 tabs. So what I'm going to do now is I want to make each of these tabs to represent the category of foods. So like burger, salad, all of those categories. So let's just create here a list of tabs. I'm just going to call it build category tabs, and we're going to return all of those food categories. Cool. And then we can convert this to a list and just give it to our list of tabs. Awesome. So, oops, looks like we have an error because we should come back over here to our homepage and change up the number, like the length, to be 5. Or more specifically, let's just say the food category's length. So however many categories we have. And also in our tab bar view, we have 5 items. So let's make sure to just copy a couple in to make sure we have 5 lists here. Okay, so if I just save this, then you can see in our tabs, we now have it organized into the categories of foods. Awesome. Now let's try to put in the actual food items in this list. So similar to how we built the category tabs, I'm going to need to sort out a list of food items that belong to the specific category. So I'm just going to create a method here called filter menu by category. Just as a couple of parameters, I just want to know the category and then the full menu as well. And so what I'm doing here is I'm just checking. I'm going to go through the full menu, and for each food, I'm just going to check the category and make sure it matches to the category of the tab. Okay, so in the burgers, we just want to show the burgers. In the salads, we just want to show the salads. Cool, so once we've filtered that out, let's have a method to return the list of foods in a given category. And so all we need to do with this is just accept the full menu as a parameter. And we're just going to map each of the food categories and return the correct menu items. Awesome, so if I come back to my tab bar view, you can see in the children, I'm going to just say get food in this category. And we're going to need to give it the full menu. I'm just going to wrap my body here in a consumer widget to consume the restaurant data. So I'm just going to return that same tab bar view, and now we can have access to our restaurant's full menu. So let's just save this and run it again. Now I just realized we didn't include the provider state management. So if you come to our class restaurant, we just need to extend the change notifier. And in our main function, you can see we've got the change notifier provider for the theme, but I want to have it for the restaurant as well. So to do this, we're going to need a multi-provider. And so one for the theme and one for the restaurant. Awesome. And then so if I save this and I go back into my app, you can see in each of our tabs, we've got the correct categories. And currently we're just displaying the name of the food. That's good, that's the hard part. So now we can just sort of decorate this up with some images and the price and things like that. By the way, there's a little bit of space at the top of these lists. So I'm just gonna put the padding and make it 0 at the top. There you go. And now in our list tile, I want to decorate this up further. Now, before our code gets too long and complicated, I'm going to separate this out into our component and make it called my food tile. And so as long as we know what the food is, which is what we're going to require, we can then start to decorate this up. And so let's actually also have an onTap method. And I'm going to create a big column here. And just use a row. And I'm just going to lay out the name of the food, the price, and then this description. And then also on the side, we want to have the food image. So let's come back to our home page, and instead of this, let's just return our food tile and give it the food. And so if I just comment this out just to make it a bit more clear, we can get the individual food by going through the categories menu and just going through each index, and then we can return the food tile. Cool. And then for the onTap, let's just execute nothing for now. So we can see that it's currently the image is too big. So let's see what we can do to fix this up. Let's maybe give it a height of 120, and that's looking pretty good so far. Now I can see the column of information. I want to make this cross-axis alignment to the start. Much better. And I think we could use some padding. And I'm just going to decorate this up a bit. So when it comes to the food price, we just want to add a $sign. And I'm just going to style up the colors for each of these text widgets. Cool, it's looking pretty good now. When it just comes to the image, it's a very sharp square. So my favorite widget is to wrap this in a clip rect. And that will just corner the borders a bit. And beautiful. Now, I think it might be a good idea to just add a divider at the bottom. I really like dividers. So this line here, but just make it a bit more subtle, make it a bit more light. Sweet, so now that we have a good menu here, we want to make the user allowed to touch on each of these tiles and then navigate to the food page. So let's create a new page in our pages folder called food page. And this one is just going to have the details of the food, and we can have some add-ons and stuff like that. So again, we just need to know what the food is. So let's just require that. And then let's return a big column. And at the top, I just want to have the image. And I just want to see what this looks like as we decorate this up. So if I come back to my food tile, you can see in the on tab, it's currently executing nothing. So if I tap on this, let's go to the food page. Okay, so let's save this, and if I click on a food, then we can go to the food page, and there it is. So I actually forgot to even put this in a scaffold, so let's just do that. So we got the image at the top, and then we got the name, the description, the add-ons, and then we want to have a final button just to add to the cart. So let's just fill this out. Now for the list view, we're going to need the add-ons here. And let's just use a checkbox tile. Cool, and if I save it, looks like there it is. It's coming along nicely. We have 3 checkbox tiles. So let's just comment this out to make it a bit more clear. So I'm going to go through my add-ons, and let's get each individual add-on first by going through the index. And then we're going to return the checkbox tile UI. Cool, there it is. Let's add the price on as well. And the cross-axis alignment, I always like to make this to the start. Now, I feel like everything below the image, we can wrap it in a column. And so, whoops, I should put the cross-axis alignment on the other one. And let's just put in a padding on the overall column. Just for the add-ons, I just want to put another container with a border around it just to make it look a little nice in its own section. And that's looking pretty good. And we should add the dollar signs to the prices. And at the very bottom, we are going to use my button for the add to cart. Cool. Now it looks like we are running out of space, which is why we have this overflow problem. And so what you can do is just wrap your column in a single child scroll view. And so that'll just make it scrollable. Cool. And just to finish off, I'm just going to add some sized box, some space at the very end. And this is our food page and it's looking pretty good. So obviously we need to check off these boxes, which is what we need to do now. And so on each food page, I'm going to create a map for the selected add-ons. Right, so we have the available add-ons and then we've got the selected add-ons that the user actually wants. So what we're going to do here is we're going to initialize the selected add-ons to be false. So obviously nothing has been chosen at the very beginning. And then if I come back to my checkbox list tile, you can see for the value, it's going to be a boolean, so false or true. And so this value is going to depend on our selected add-ons list. Cool, so let's save this and refresh it, and let's make sure that we can tick these off. So that's going to be on this onChanged method. We're going to accept the boolean value, so if it's on or off, and then we can set the state to just update the value. And there it is, we can start checking these off. Now from this food page, if you slide back, you can actually go to the previous page, but I actually want to have a visible back button. So what I'm going to do is you can just have an app bar here and you can see that'll create that back button automatically. But I want to make this look a little nicer and more fancy. So kind of cool trick I can show you is I'm going to wrap this entire scaffold in a stack. And what a stack does is it just allows you to stack multiple widgets on top of each other. So let me just show you here. So I've got the scaffold, and then on top of that, I'm just going to have a back button. So let's just put a container. And then I'm going to use a icon button. And so this one for the functionality is just going to be navigator.pop. So it's just going to go to the previous page. And you can see there is the button on the top left. Firstly, you can wrap this widget in a safe area to make it kind of avoid the notch part. I'm going to add some margin. And I'm going to curve the borders. Actually, I'm just going to make this a circle. And what I'm going to do, another cool trick is you can wrap this in an opacity widget, which makes it kind of transparent. And so that's looking pretty good so far. So from this page, we want to click this add to cart button, which means we're going to need a new model. So let's create a new file here called cart item, and we're going to create this class. So for each cart item, we just need to know the food, the selected add-ons, and the quantity. So for the quantity, let's just initialize it to be 1, and then the user can adjust this in the checkout. So for the getters, I just want to be able to get the total price because you got the food, but then also the selected add-ons. Let's just add all this up. And then in the restaurant class, if I come down to the operations, let's fill out this add to cart method. So I just need to know the food and also the list of add-ons. So firstly, let's see if there is a cart item already with the same food and selected items, because then we can just increase the quantity. So firstly, we'll do that check. And by the way, I just realized we didn't even create a cart. So let's just create a user cart real quick. So this is going to be a list of cart items, and it's going to be blank at the beginning. And so we're just going to go checking through this cart to see if the same food item exists already. And I want to use this method from another package that's really helpful. So if you just go open up your terminal, you can say Flutter pub add collection. And you can see we can import there. Cool, so let's check if the food items are the same and then check if the list of selected add-ons are the same. And if this is the case, if the item already exists, we're just going to increase the quantity. And then otherwise, we're going to add a new cart item. And then we want to notify the listeners to update the UI. Cool, and then while we're here, let's also have the remove from cart. So for this one, we're just going to decrease the quantity. So as long as it exists, we're going to decrease the quantity. And we're going to check as long as it's greater than 1. So as long as it's greater than 1, we just want to decrease the value. Otherwise, if it's at 1, then we just want to remove it from the cart entirely. Awesome, and then let's do the calculation for the total price. and also getting the total item count, so how many is in the cart. And then finally we can clear the cart. Awesome. And then also just make sure to put the notify listeners when we need to update the UI. Cool, so these are the main operations that we're going to need for the functionality. So if I come back to my button, we can finally add to cart. So let's just create this method up here real quick. So when we're adding to the cart, we need to know the food and also the selected add-ons. And you can see here it's a map, right? So it's going to say a certain add-on is going to be true or false. So what I want to do is I'm going to just create another list here for just being a list of add-ons. And we're going to go through all of the available add-ons and then just check which ones are true. Sweet, then we can access our restaurant and add it to the cart. Cool, so let's just test this out. So I'm going to go to this bacon burger and let's check off a couple of add-ons and add to cart, which should trigger this method. And the next thing we should do is let's close the current food page to go back to the menu. So let's say navigator.pop. So if I select it, then we're going to go back to the home page. And then now I want to click on this button at the top to go to our cart page. So let's create that now. So for the cart page, let's just start with a consumer. So I want to access all the restaurant information. So I want to access the cart, which I don't actually think I created the getter. So let's come back over here to the restaurant class and create the getter for the cart. And so in the cart page, let's get the user cart and then we can return the scaffold UI. So just to see if this is working, I'm just going to save this and scroll down here. So in our Sliver app bar, we have the cart button somewhere. So in the actions, we should be able to find the cart button. There it is. And then you can see here on the press, we are currently executing nothing. So if the user clicks on this cart button, I want to go to the cart page. Awesome, so let's save this and test this out. Yay, so we are at the cart page now. And so in the body, I'm going to use a big column and use an expanded widget to fill up most of this page with a list. And we're going to print everything in the user cart. So if I test this out, I'm going to add something on and then go to the cart and you can see there it is, the bacon burger. So let's just add some comments here to be clear of what we're doing. So we have the individual cart item by going through the index of the user cart, and then we're going to return the cart tile UI. Now let's create a new component called my cart tile. And all you need to know for this is just the cart item, and then we're just going to decorate around it. So let's start with a consumer widget to get the restaurant. Cool, so we're going to start with a big column and then a row that has the food image, name and price, and also we're going to have a counter for the increment and decrementing the quantity. Okay, and then below all this we're going to have the add-ons. So let's just start with the image. And just to see what this looks like as we decorate this. In our cart page, let's return my cart tile. There it is. And if I just save this, you can see the image is huge. So let's actually set this height to be 50. Maybe let's put this as 100. And we're going to put this in a clip direct to curve the corners. And then let's just put the name and price in a column. Now let's go to our components and create a new file. So my quantity selector. And so for the parameters for this one, we just want to know the quantity and the food we're looking at. And also a couple of callbacks, so increment as well as decrement. So in the build, let's just have a container and just start with a decoration, and we're just gonna color this up with some border radius as well. Add some padding. And in the child, let's use a row. And so we want to have a gesture detector for the decrease. And then in the middle, we'll have the quantity count, and then we'll have the increase button. Awesome, so if you come back to my cart tile, we can say quantity selector, and there it is. And we can fill this out. So for the quantity, we can say cart item.quantity and then give it the food. And then for the methods for the decrease and the increase, let's just say remove from cart for the decrease and then add to cart for the increment. And you can see if you save it, there is our little quantity selector, and you can see the plus and minus works. Cool. And then if you actually look carefully, when the number increases to like 10, the number like changes. You can see it's kind of changing the size. So what you can do is wrap this in a sized box and just give it a fixed width, and then everything should be working properly. Cool. So I'm just going to decorate this up. And that's looking pretty good. So now it's time for the add-ons. If we have add-ons, then let's have a list view. And I want to make the scroll direction horizontal. And we're just going to go through the selected add-ons in our cart item. And I'm going to return it as a chip. So this filter chip for the label, let's just have the name and the price. And if I just save this, you can see if I add an extra add-on, there it is. So that's what it looks like. So let's just decorate this up. I'm going to change the background color. And the border. Cool. And then let's just add some padding. And let's just check this. If I add multiple add-ons, yeah, you can see it's stuck together. So for the filter chip, I'm just going to add a padding and only to the right side. And sweet, it's looking pretty good. Now on this cart page in the app bar, in the actions, let's have a button to clear all cart. And just before we clear the cart, let's actually have a dialog to confirm that the user actually wants to, clear the entire cart before we do. So are you sure you want to clear the cart? And then we can have a couple buttons. So cancel button and yes. Cool, so let's test this out. Now if I add some stuff to my cart, we can click on this bin button at the top, and then it says, are you sure you want to clear the cart? And we can say yes. Sweet. By the way, you see when the card is empty, instead of just displaying an empty page, I want to actually say some message. So in the build, let's just check if the user card is empty. Then I'm just going to return a text widget just saying that it's empty. Let's make sure to center this. And so you can see it'll be more clear for the user what's happening on this page instead of just being blank. Sweet. Now the next thing to do is on this card page, we need to have a button to go to the checkout. So let's wrap this column in another column. And so the first part here is just the list of cart. And then at the bottom, we want to have a button to pay. And it looks like we have some height error, and that's because we should wrap this column inside with an expanded widget. Sweet, there it is. And I think we could use some space at the very bottom here. So when we tap on this button, we want to go to the payment page, which we haven't created. So let's create that now. So let's just give it the basic scaffold and an app bar. And we can navigate to this page. And in the body, we're going to have a big column, and at the top, we're going to have a credit card. So for this, I'm going to bring in a package that I like, which is a credit card widget. So you can say Flutter pub add Flutter credit card like this. And so you can look up this package in more detail, but I can show you how it works here. So we can fill out this little bit of information. And so I'm going to have all of these values at the top in a string. Cool, so if I just save this, you can see there's our credit card. Now underneath this, we're going to have a credit card form for the user to fill out. So for this, we need a couple more bits of variables. So the first thing is a global key. And on the credit card model change, we're just going to update all of the information. Cool, so if you try this, you can see there's our form, and if you fill out this information, it's going to be reflected on the card. Cool, so this is how you can get the payment information from the user. Now below this, we're going to have a bit of space and then my button again to pay now. Cool, and when we pay now, we want to make sure, let's just fill out this method at the top. If the form key is current state is validated, so we only want to show the dialog if it's valid. And we're going to have another confirmation message for this as well. So we're going to show a dialog to confirm the payment. So let's have a cancel button and a yes button. So cancel will just pop the dialog. For the yes button, we're going to pop the dialog, but then also go to the next page. And that's going to be the delivery progress page. Okay, so let's see if this works. So you're going to go to the menu, add some stuff, go to the cart, and then we can now go to the checkout and we can fill out this card. And then once the user fills this out, we can click pay now and it'll say confirm payment. Then you can say yes, and then it'll go to the next page. And by the way, looks like there's a little bug here. We should always pop the dialog as well, and then we'll navigate to the new page. Sweet. So now in the delivery progress page, we want to just display some sort of like receipt. So I'm going to create a new component called my receipt. Let's add some padding. And we're just going to have a big column and say thank you for your order. And we're going to put the receipt here. So just to see what this looks like in our delivery progress page, let's import my receipt, and there it is. So in the receipt, I'm going to put some decoration. So like some borders. And then some padding. And we'll curve the corners. And let's center this. And so I'm just going to make this look a little nicer. Now I think it's ready for the actual receipt. So if you go to your restaurant model, if you scroll down to the helpers, we want to generate a receipt for the order. So just to do this, we're going to create two little formatting methods here as well. So format double value into money. So all this is just given a price. I'm just going to stick a $sign on this. And make sure to correct it to 2 decimal places. So that's what this format price is doing. And then we also have a format list of add-ons into a string summary. So for each food, we can have a lot of add-ons. And so we're just going to put this all together in a nice string. And so I'll show you in just a second a little bit more clearly what this looks like. So we can create a cart receipt method. So let's call this display cart receipt. And what I'm going to do is it's just going to be a long string. And so we're going to say, here's your receipt. And then we're also going to include the date. And by the way, a nice package here to use is the intl. So I'm just going to import that one. And what that does is it allows us to format these date times very nicely. So let's print the formatted date. And then we're going to do a quick for loop and go through all of the cart items in the cart and just print them out. So like how many, like the quantity and the name, as well as the price and all the important information like the add-ons and stuff like that. So let me just fill this out. And then just have a summary at the end, total items, and then total price. And we're going to return this as a string. So if I come back to my receipt, you can see we said receipt here. And so instead of this, what we're going to do is we're going to wrap this in a consumer widget to get access to the restaurant. And so now we can display the cart receipt here. And there it is. So that's what it looks like. So you can obviously change the way this looks, but this is what we can do for the receipt. So let me just clean this up a little bit. We can also have like an estimated delivery time. And so if I come back to my delivery progress page, I want to have a bottom navigation bar for the rider details. So I'm going to have a custom bottom nav bar for the delivery driver. So I'm going to create a container with a height of 100. And we're going to give some nice curved borders. And let's give the delivery driver like a profile picture. So this is going to be a circle. There it is. So this is like a profile picture of the driver, and then let's have the driver details. The message button and then the call button. And for the message button and the call button, I'm just going to put them together as a row so that I can just group them together. And this is looking pretty good so far. So just to check, I just want to save this and see what it looks like in dark mode. And everything's looking pretty sleek in dark mode as well. So now we finished all the UI and the front end. So now let's focus on implementing the backend. So I'm going to use FIREBASE for this project. So if you go to your console, I'm going to create a new project and I'm just going to call it food delivery chute. You can call it whatever you want. And let's create this project. Cool, so once you've created it, let's go to the authentication and click get started. And I just want to enable the email and password. So let's start by connecting our Flutter app to FIREBASE. So if you haven't already done this, then you have to type in this command for the FIREBASE tools. So in your terminal, npm install FIREBASE tools. So make sure to type this in if you haven't already. Now I've already done this, so I'm not going to do this step. So once you've done that, then you should be able to type in FIREBASE login and make sure you're logged into the same email as your FIREBASE console. Then we can say flutter pub global activate flutter fire CLI. Looks like on Mac I get this little error, so I can fix this by adding this in. So I'm just going to do that. And finally, what we want to do is flutter fire configure. And so here you'll get the list of your FIREBASE projects. So I'm going to find my one, which is the food delivery chute. And let's do this for Android and iOS for now. Cool. And everything should be successfully added. So you should be able to see this new generated file here. And so what we need to do next is to say flutter pub add FIREBASE core. And hopefully all of your errors should go away. And now finally we can say flutter pub add FIREBASE auth. Cool. So if that's all good, at the very beginning in your main function, we're going to say widgets flutter binding ensure initialized. And let's change this to an async function so that we can await firebase.initialize app. And if you go to your default FIREBASE options, you should be able to see the current platform. So we're just going to do this little bit of setting up. Now, when you add a bunch of packages in like this, it's a good idea to just kill your app and restart it, just to make sure there's no errors. So now I'm going to create a new folder called services. And I'm going to drag my auth folder into this services folder. And so in the services folder, we're going to deal with the authentication. And later we're going to do the Firestore. So for now, in our auth folder, let's create a new file, authservice.dart. And this is where we're going to create our class. So firstly, we're going to get the instance of the FIREBASE auth. And then we're going to get the current user. And then the three main methods here is going to be sign in, sign up, and sign out. So let's just fill this out, starting with getting the instance. And then we can get the current user. And then let's create our method to sign in with email and password. So we're just going to try the sign in first. And just catch any errors if there are. And we're going to do the similar thing for signing up. So I'm just going to copy this. It's very similar, so just change this to sign up. And then finally sign out. Cool, so this is all the code necessary for the authentication. Now I just want to make one more file called auth_gate. And the purpose of this file is to just check whether the current user is logged in or not. And we're going to have a stream builder here. And the stream that we're going to listen for is the auth state changes. So like I said, this stream is listening for if you're logged in or not. So in the builder, depending on if you're logged in, so if your user is logged in, then we're going to return the home page. And if the user is not logged in, then we're going to return the login or register page. So remember at the very beginning in the main.dart file, we're currently just straight away displaying the login or register page. But now I want to return the auth_gate. So what this is going to do is it's firstly just going to check if the current user is logged in or not. But let's try this out. So I'm just going to go to the register page and I'm going to fill this information out. And if I click sign up, looks like we have this dialog box right now. So let's go to our register page. And remember here in our register method, we had this little section here to fill out the authentication. So let's do that now. We can get rid of this dialog box. And so all we need to do here is to get the auth service. And then we just want to check first of all if the passwords match. So we're just going to check the password and the confirm password controller. And if they match, then let's create the user. And then if the passwords don't match, then let's show a dialog and just let the user know that the passwords don't match. Awesome. And also in the login page, if I go to my login method, yeah, we need to fill out the authentication here. So I'm going to get the instance of the auth service first. Try the sign in and then display any errors. Okay, let's check this out. So if I just save this and go to my register page, I'm going to give it an email and then let's give it a password. First of all, let's make sure that if the passwords don't match, let's see what happens. It tells us the passwords don't match and then make sure it matches. And then now we can sign up and we are in here. Cool, which naturally means we should actually implement the log out button as well. So let's go to our drawer and go to our login, our logout button. And this is our logout method. So for this one, same thing. We're just going to get the auth service and just log out. Sweet. And so yeah, now we can log out and log in as well. Beautiful. Authentication is done. And then if we come to our Firebase console and you go to the users tab, you can see there's our new user that we just created. So everything is working fine. So now it's time for the Firestore database. So if you go to the build here, go to your Firestore database. And click create database. For the location, you can choose whatever location you want. I'm just going to leave it at US and let's create. And so this is our database. Now, first thing to do is if you go to the rules, in the right, you can see it says false. So just change this to be true so that any of our users can write information into this database. And then let's come back to our Flutter app. And what we need to do is I'm going to go to our services folder and create a new folder called database. And let's create a new file here called firestore.dart. And so similar to the auth, we need to open up our terminal and add this package in. So flutter pub add cloud firestore. And then once you've done that, we can start building our class. So I'm just going to call this Firestore service. And let's get our collection of orders. And then we need to have a method to save the order into the database. And so what I want to save is that receipt that we generated. So let's just try this out. If I add something to the cart. Oh, by the way, it looks like we have an overflow problem with the UI. Let's just fix this real quick. This is in our cart tile. And so it's because of the name of the cheeseburger is too long. So what we can do is I'm just going to grab the quantity selector. And let's bring it down below all of these texts. Yep, that's much better. Cool, so if we go to the payment page and then we go to the delivery progress page, once we get to this page, that's when we want to submit it to the order, right, to the database after the user has paid. So if you go to your delivery progress page, when this user first fires up, we can go to our initial state, which looks like we currently made this a stateless widget. So I want to change this to a stateful widget. And one way you can do that is you can click on this stateless widget here, and on Mac you can press Command dot and you get this option to change to a stateful widget. So I think on Windows, if you're on Windows, you can be able to press like Control dot or something, and so you can easily change this to a stateful widget. And now we can say init state. So when this app first fires up, we can get access to the database. And then if we get to this page, then we can submit the order to the database. Okay, so let's try this out. So if I click on this cheeseburger and I add this to the cart, and I go check out, and go to the payment screen and click yes. Then once I get to this page, if you go back to your console and you refresh the page, then you can see there should be a collection here called orders, and there's our order with all the information and the date. Then the restaurant owner can just look at the database on this Firebase console and the live orders will be coming through, which I think is amazing. So if we come back to our Flutter app, One other thing is let's also have the address. So currently it's just a fixed string right now. So what I want to do is if we go to our component, go to your current location widget, and you can see, like I said before, it's currently just a fixed string. So let's finish off by allowing the user to manually input an address. Let's come back to our restaurant and we've got the menu, we've got the user cart, and let's also have the delivery address, which the user can manually edit. So I'm going to create a method down here to update the delivery address. So given a new address, we can just update it and notify the listeners. And then come back to our current location widget. So this is where we've got it. So instead of fixing the string like this, we can wrap this in a consumer widget to access our restaurant. And just give it the delivery address. Awesome. Which means we can enter a new address and it'll update there. Sweet, which means let's also add this on to the receipt order. So delivering to the delivery address. There it is, which means this should be updated as well on your Firebase console. Sweet, so I'll leave it at that for now. If you want the full code with assets, you can download it from the link below. I added many more features and refined this app a lot, so you may be interested in downloading the final code. I hope this was helpful for you. If you have any questions, comment below. Thanks for watching and I'll catch you in the next one.